All right, so this is cool. I've never seen like the Apple emojis translated to Google emojis. This is nice. I can't really hear myself, so I'm gonna assume that you can hear me. This is gonna be fine. Okay. My presentation is titled "Mobile First Equals Dragon Energy." Really, the general thesis of this talk is just like it's interesting how we are trying to usurp and replace like financial systems and traditional web systems projects by building apps and decentralized web apps. But we're not really going to do that unless we make things accessible and we actually make them built for the 7 billion people who are going to have like smartphones in the next like 2 years. So what is the state of DeFi today? The state of DeFi today is pretty involved, it's pretty intense, and it's pretty all over the place. There are new projects coming out every week that are leveraging old projects and reviving old ideas, but doing them in new ways. And there's a lot of money going around the whole time. So a screenshot of just like this general DeFi dashboard gives you an idea of like, wow, there's just like a ton to all of this, and there's a lot of money, and there's a lot of things flowing. And if you really get into it on a regular basis, you can end up looking like this. But where does this end and where does it go next? Why do people throw thousands of dollars around into like dexes? Why do they try and build out whole new like essentially Ponzi scheme looking protocols that then you're actually like, oh wait, this is really, really cool, and if I just get involved in this community, I can learn to yield farming and make a ton of money doing like massive APYs and going cross-chain from here during this APY. But why does anyone do that? It's because they can, and they just have the ability to do these things. So when you look at what then is the case for mobile first DeFi, the case is the fact that, well, there's a lot of people who can't currently do DeFi and they would like to do it. So I imagine the case for mobile first DeFi is just to give people the ability to do things, to actually get involved in this ecosystem of decentralized finance that we're all kind of enjoying the fruits of currently. So it's a word, the word is, yeah, for accessibility. So the number one best case for mobile devices is the fact that there are a lot of them. It turns out we have a lot of cell phones on this planet, and a good number of them are smartphones, which allows us to build out a ton of cool functionality for mobile apps. And the actual market for mobile apps, if you look at just like sub-Saharan Africa coming online into mobile phones, it's going to be like 600 million in the next 5 years alone, and that's just one region of the world. So if you look at, like, just take as the term the global south, like the global south is going to have more cell phones than like the northern part of this planet in the next like 5 years. And that's pretty freaking crazy because there's a ton of people who have never used laptops, they've never used like desktop computers. They're not going to install a MetaMask like browser plugin. They're not going to install like anything like a Wallet Connect on their laptop. They're going to need it presented to them on like a mobile platform, and that's like the bare minimum that we can do from the Web3 community. Is just like meet them where they're at and give them what they need. So reason number two is the constraints. Hold on a second. When we talk about constraints, oh man, I missed my cool graph. Nice. Now here's my cool graph, and this just breaks up. As you can tell, my voice is a little bit dead. This just breaks up the communities of people around the world that are actually using mobile devices, like even by those who have access to like LTE 4G, which is actually a huge portion of them. Like I think the assumption is that just because someone's in another country and they have a cell phone, they must have like worse internet than you and I, and that's actually factually not true. It turns out that you can get good internet in a lot of places around the planet. So yeah, I'm going to go to the next one. That was my cool graph. So reason number two is constraints. So on this one, so currently the constraints of Web3 are the constraints of Web3 are to web apps, and we think that the citadel that we are building for Web3 and the Web3 world is like some incredible, awesome, connected future, and we have like this idea in our like Ethereum minds and our like, you know, Buffercorn, DGen, NFT minds that this is somehow this incredible future that we are currently building for all of us. When in reality, unless we make this stuff super, super like easy, accessible, like not only just on-ramping cash and creating like seamless user experiences, unless we are actually like onboarding users from the global south, from emerging markets, and from just generally like non-laptop native communities, we're definitely not building this citadel like at all. So this is actually what you're building. And this is more realistic as to what we currently see of the Web3 ecosystem. I think if you really go home to your families like this holiday season and you're objective about the way that like you're talking about your work to like average people and normal people, you're gonna find out that you don't look like this, and what the world that we're like building in Web3 doesn't look like this. In reality, what we've built currently in Web3 and the way that like you and I interact with it very comfortably, and the way we talk to other people actually looks like this. This is more realistic as to what we look like when we're talking about, hey mom, I work on this awesome Ethereum project and I do this blockchain stuff. This is what she thinks you look like. And this is what everybody in like markets that just have cell phones probably think that we look like as we talk about how we are banking the unbanked, as we're like doing cross-border remittances, we're doing things and like, oh, have you heard about this awesome new yield farming? You can just like bridge from Matic to Ethereum or back and forth. And reality is no one understands what we're saying. And it might be easier to help them understand what we're saying if their project, if like the actual project that they're interacting with already was super simple and it was on their cell phone, something that they understand and they can identify with as a medium, because it's what they're used to. So the fun part about mobile first is that there's more capabilities. In reality, so I don't know how many of you have been rugged, but I think we've all been rugged at some point. And there's something that's really great about cell phones. You can send push notifications. You can actually like stop yourself from like being rugged at an opportune time of night and day. There's just a lot of functionality to cell phones in general. For instance, contact lists. You can automatically on-ramp people by doing DID solutions, like our own form. We have a light client identity that does text message mapping to blockchain addresses in a cryptographic manner. But that's just open source code, and anyone can use that to onboard for any of the apps that they build for like a mobile world. And so that way you can just like basically automatically have a contact list that you can invite people, and it makes blockchain addresses for them. And they are now onboarded into the ecosystem by sending them text messages. It's actually in a lot of ways more secure to have things on your phone. So yeah, we don't have to go back to that. But it is in general sometimes more censorship resistant. Storing keys on phones, like I don't know how many of you have used Anchorage or other custody solutions like that, but you actually have to use your cell phone in order to utilize it. Oh yeah. The way that we've done it is create a ZK Snark-based light client ceremony called Plumo. But all it's basically doing is syncing up the headers for mobile devices with the actual fundamental layer 1 blockchain, Celo. So this is an example of how like our validators are set up. So you have the core and central validators, then you have full nodes running on participants of the network, and then you can actually run partial nodes on cell phone devices, and that's how we're doing the light client identity syncing ceremony, is between these light clients on these cell phones and the full nodes and validators of the network itself. But MoFi in action, I'm going to just like show you an example. So when you're trying to reach these populations in emerging markets or around the world where anyone is able to just download a phone and like get involved with the Celo ecosystem or through other ecosystems with the bridges that are now available, you're going to have like a problem of like, okay, well, how do we onboard users into this world? And maybe they've never experienced Web3. And we have examples of people like Valora, which has managed to onboard thousands of people in the Philippines and around the world, but specifically I'm going to focus on the Philippines because they just simply went and parked a big van outside of the Western Union office where there was lines going around the block, and said, "Hey, here, we'll give you $5 free if you sign up and send your remittances across border as simple as you send a text message." And it's actually seen a ton of success, but all we've actually done is created Venmo that's on a blockchain that is fast in 5-second block times, and is just a simple way for people in these regions to get involved. So now I would like to talk about Impact Market, which is a personal favorite of mine, and Marco's back there, sitting there in his Impact Market shirt. And these guys have done some pretty incredible things. They've taken, they are currently running the biggest universal basic income experiment on the planet, with 20,000 people receiving a daily UBI from their cell phone-based Web3 app. And none of them, for instance, by the way, none of them really are fully understanding sure that it's like a blockchain app. They just recognize they're getting universal basic income through a seamless user experience. And so it's a really easy way to see the benefits of how bringing crypto to a population and the medium with which they're used to is actually very, very beneficial to people. So yeah, for understanding that they have communities all over the planet, but specifically in West Africa and South America, and $1.3 million claimed in the last year via UBI in 24 countries, and 20.5 thousand beneficiaries, which is more than the UN, which is more than a lot of these projects that have very good feeling, good altruistic feel to them, but just there's actual technology constraints and consensus restraints to actively getting end users and those in disenfranchised situations money quickly and seamlessly. So shouts out to Impact Market. It's a good example of what happens when you start giving those communities money through crypto, and they learned about how they can earn rewards by holding onto the money in the accounts, or they get involved in staking. They suddenly just started treating Impact Market, and consequently Valora Wallet, which it was built on, they treated it as a bank account almost immediately. It was the easiest and fastest way for them to suddenly access this idea of wealth accumulation. So it's been something that's been super successful in Brazil for us and for Marco at the Impact Market team. And the way that people get started is by simply one person signs their community up to receive this UBI, and then they just do it through word of mouth and say, hey, download this app, receive this UBI every day. And based off of so this is an example of a community organizer educating people about Impact Market. But the way that ends up working is actually very efficiently, and people just understand oh, okay, I'll download this app and I'll get some money. And it's not too difficult. Very similar to Venmo, as you can see. Yeah, this is cool art that was done by this community in Brazil, and I like that they got so excited about some of the apps that we built that they painted a wall. So I want to see this taken further, though. I want to see actual the way that we're building these degen universes of DeFi Legos. I want to see us implied more. I want to take more from it, and I want to see us deploy this on a mobile basis, because DeFi is inherently not actually a Western ideal. People have been doing savings circles and Tonda loan clubs around the planet for generations. There's things in East Africa called the Akub, which is very, very similar to the concept of pull together. And so if we start building these for mobile audiences and we start actually taking advantage of these mobile communities, we can see what services need to be built, and we can actually probably innovate upon the concept of DeFi quicker and with more accessibility and more users involved. So I think if we took it further, it'd be beneficial for all of us. So let's go for the everything bagel. And I'm going to end it there because I think we're pretty behind time.